A young virgin who always lived by her grandmother's rules, grew up believing her life would be simple and straightforward. The millionaire finds himself drawn to her, but what started as seduction turns into a psychological battle. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. The New York skyline glittered like a constellation against the night sky as Emma Bennett stared out from the penthouse balcony of the Archer Grand Hotel. The crisp autumn air kissed her bare shoulders, causing a slight shiver that had nothing to do with the temperature. Tonight was the night. Everything she had worked for over the past 3 years had led to this moment. "Another glass of champagne, miss," a server approached with a silver tray. Emma shook her head, her chestnut curls bouncing softly against her shoulders. "No, thank you. I need to keep a clear head tonight." The charity gala inside the ballroom pulsed with wealth and power. CEOs, celebrities, and politicians mingled effortlessly, their collective net worth enough to fund a small nation. But Emma's eyes were fixed on only one person, Nathan Blackwood, the 38-year-old billionaire whose steel blue eyes surveyed the room like a king overlooking his domain. To everyone in that room, Emma Bennett was a simple small-town girl from Burlington, Vermont, a junior coordinator at the Fairchild Foundation, who had earned an invitation to this exclusive event through hard work and dedication. Her modest emerald dress, delicate pearl necklace, and minimal makeup reinforced the image of innocence and simplicity she had carefully crafted. But beneath that carefully constructed facade lay something far more complex. "Ms. Bennett, isn't it?" The deep voice behind her made her heart race, though she had been anticipating it all evening. She turned slowly, her green eyes widening with practiced surprise. "Mr. Blackwood." She offered her hand, which he took with a firm but gentle grasp. "I didn't expect you to know who I am." Nathan's smile was measured, revealing perfect white teeth that contrasted with his tanned skin. "I make it my business to know everyone who works with my charitable endeavors. Your proposal for youth education in underprivileged communities caught my attention." Emma lowered her eyes momentarily, playing the part of the bashful employee. "That's very kind of you to say. It's a cause that's close to my heart." "Walk with me," he said, not quite a request. His hand gently guided her elbow as they moved, away from the crowd toward a quieter corner of the balcony. Nathan Blackwood had built his empire from the ground up, or so the official story went. Starting with a tech innovation during his college years, he had expanded into real estate, energy, and telecommunications. His face graced the covers of business magazines, and his name was synonymous with success. Yet behind the perfect smile and confident demeanor was a man haunted by shadows few people ever glimpsed. "Your grandmother must be proud of your accomplishments," he remarked, catching Emma off guard. She recovered quickly. "You've done your research." "As I said, I like to know who I'm working with." He leaned against the railing, studying her with an intensity that might have intimidated someone who wasn't prepared for it. "Raised by your grandmother after your parents relocated to Europe, graduated top of your class at Middlebury College, turned down offers from several Fortune 500 companies to work at a non-profit. Interesting choices." Emma maintained her composure. "Life isn't always about maximizing profit, Mr. Blackwood." "Nathan," he corrected her, "and no, it isn't. But it is about maximizing potential." He took a sip of his scotch. "Which is why I find you intriguing, Emma Bennett. You seem to be playing a game far below your league." For a heartbeat, Emma wondered if he had seen through her. But the slight smirk that played on his lips told her he was merely flirting, testing her boundaries as he likely did with any woman who caught his attention. "Perhaps I'm exactly where I need to be," she replied, allowing a hint of mystery to color her voice. The conversation flowed with surprising ease after that. Nathan spoke about his latest projects, his vision for sustainable development, his frustrations with short-sighted investors. Emma listened attentively, asking insightful questions that demonstrated her understanding of business dynamics far beyond what her position at the Fairchild Foundation would suggest. "You know," he said after almost an hour of conversation, "I can't shake the feeling that there's more to you than meets the eye, Emma Bennett." She smiled enigmatically. "Isn't there more to everyone?" Not everyone, he countered. Most people are disappointingly transparent. And you, Nathan, are you transparent? His laugh held no humor. I'm an open book. At least, that's what Forbes claimed in their profile last month. I read that piece, Emma said. It mentioned your brother briefly. The change in Nathan's demeanor was subtle but unmistakable. A tightening around the eyes, a slight tension in his jaw. Journalists always want to dig into personal matters that have no relevance to current business. I'm sorry, Emma backtracked. I didn't mean to touch on a sensitive subject. Nathan waved a dismissive hand, but the easy atmosphere between them had shifted. It was a long time ago. Joshua was. He was always the better one of us, more idealistic, less pragmatic. I understand loss, Emma said softly. It changes you. Something flickered in Nathan's eyes, vulnerability perhaps, or recognition. For a moment, the power dynamic between them equalized as they stood on the common ground of grief. The moment passed when his phone buzzed. He glanced at it with a frown. I'm afraid I need to handle this. Business never sleeps. Of course. Emma stepped back, preparing to return to the gala alone. Have dinner with me tomorrow, Nathan said abruptly. Emma hesitated, as if considering whether accepting would be appropriate. I don't usually mix professional relationships with personal ones. Neither do I, he replied. But I think we both know this conversation has moved beyond professional courtesy. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. My private number. Text me your address. I'll send a car at 8. Emma took the card between two fingers. I haven't said yes yet. Nathan's smile held absolute confidence. But you will. After he departed, Emma remained on the balcony, turning the business card over in her hands. Phase 1 complete. Nathan Blackwood had taken the bait, just as she had anticipated. 3 years of careful planning, of constructing an identity that would appeal to him, of positioning herself perfectly in his path. It had all led to this moment. As she gazed out at the glittering skyline, Emma thought about her grandmother. Not the fictional, strict maternal figure she had invented for her cover story, but her real grandmother. The woman who had raised her with stories about honor and justice, who had taught her that some wrongs could never be left uncorrected. I'm doing this for you, she whispered to the night air, her resolve strengthening. The next evening, Emma stood before her modest apartment mirror, applying the finishing touches to her carefully cultivated image. Her dress was elegant, but conservative, a deep blue that brought out the green in her eyes without being overtly seductive. Her jewelry was minimal, her makeup subtle enough to enhance her natural features, while maintaining the appearance of effortless beauty. The text message from Nathan had been succinct. Car arriving at 8. Looking forward to continuing our conversation. No question mark, no room for refusal. That was Nathan Blackwood, accustomed to giving orders and having them obeyed without question. When the sleek black town car pulled up outside her building at precisely 8 o'clock, Emma took a deep breath. Step 2 of her plan was about to begin. She had studied Nathan Blackwood for years, his businesses, his habits, his preferences, his weaknesses. She knew what would intrigue him, what would make him let down his guard. What she hadn't anticipated was how her heart would race when he opened the car door himself instead of sending his driver, or how genuine her smile would feel when their eyes met. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you. She slid into the car, the leather seat cool against her bare legs. Where are we going? Somewhere private, Nathan replied, his eyes holding hers. I thought we might continue our conversation, without the distraction of prying eyes and social obligations, unless you'd prefer a more public venue. The question was delivered as a challenge, testing whether she would retreat to the safety of convention or venture into uncharted territory with him. Emma met his gaze steadily. Private sounds perfect. As the car pulled away from the curb, Emma felt the weight of her true purpose pressing against her chest. She was getting closer to Nathan Blackwood, just as she had planned. But she hadn't expected the magnetic pull she felt toward him, nor the troubling realization that beneath his carefully constructed facade of control and confidence lay a man with depths she had not fully anticipated. This was supposed to be a game of seduction and strategy. a means to an end. But as they drove through the glittering streets of Manhattan toward his penthouse, Emma couldn't help but wonder if she was still fully in control of the game she had set in motion. What had begun as a mission of justice was becoming something far more complicated. The lines between deception and genuine connection were beginning to blur, and Emma found herself in the dangerous position of questioning her own motivations. Was she still the puppet master pulling the strings, or was she becoming entangled in the very web she had woven? Nathan's hand brushed against hers in the darkness of the car, and the electric current that passed between them was undeniable. Just a physical reaction, she told herself. A natural response she could use to her advantage. But as his penthouse came into view, a glass monument to success rising above the city, Emma felt a flutter of something that felt dangerously like anticipation rather than calculation. "Ready?" Nathan asked as the car stopped, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that suggested he was looking for something beyond the surface. Emma smiled, stepping into the role she had rehearsed for years, while trying to ignore the unsettling feeling that she might be playing with a fire she could not control. "I'm ready," she answered, and knew that tonight would change everything between them, in ways neither of them could fully predict. Nathan's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of the Obsidian, one of Manhattan's most exclusive residential buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city that took Emma's breath away, despite her determination to remain unmoved by his displays of wealth. "First time in a place like this?" Nathan asked, watching her reaction carefully as they stepped off the private elevator. Emma allowed herself a moment of genuine wonder. "It's spectacular," she admitted, "though I imagine it gets lonely sometimes, being so far above everything." Nathan's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. Lonely is a state of mind, not a state of geography. He guided her through the minimalist space, all clean lines, neutral tones, and strategic lighting that highlighted an impressive collection of modern art. Everything about the penthouse spoke of careful curation, of a man who controlled every detail of his environment. "Wine?" He moved to a temperature-controlled wall unit that housed an extensive collection. "Please," Emma replied, using the moment to gather her thoughts. This was Nathan's territory, his fortress. She needed to maintain the perfect balance. Impressed but not intimidated, attracted but not desperate, intriguing but not suspicious. "You prefer red, if I recall from our conversation last night." He selected a bottle and began to open it with practiced ease. Emma smiled, impressed despite herself that he had noted such a detail. "You have a good memory." "I pay attention to what matters." He handed her a glass, their fingers brushing briefly. "Most people don't realize how much they reveal in casual conversation." "And what have I revealed, Nathan?" Emma took a sip, the rich flavor coating her tongue as she maintained eye contact. "That you're playing a role," he said simply, causing her heart to stutter. "The humble non-profit worker who happened to catch my attention with her intelligence and beauty. It's a good performance, but it's still a performance." Emma kept her expression neutral, though her mind raced. "We all play roles, don't we? The billionaire philanthropist is as much a character as anything else." Nathan's smile was slow and appreciative. "Touché." He gestured toward the terrace. "Shall we have dinner outside?" The chef prepared something special. The terrace was stunning, a private oasis above the city with a small infinity pool glowing turquoise against the night sky. A table had been set with fine china, crystal, and silver, candles flickering in the gentle breeze. "Your staff did all this while we were in the car?" Emma asked, genuinely impressed by the efficiency. "I like to be prepared." Nathan pulled out her chair. "I knew you'd say yes to dinner. You seem very confident in your ability to predict people's behaviors." "People are predictable when you understand their motivations." He took his seat across from her. "The real challenge is finding someone whose motivations aren't transparent." A server appeared, as if conjured from thin air, presenting the first course with a flourish before disappearing just as silently. "And what do you think motivates me?" "Nathan?" Emma asked, sampling the delicate seafood appetizer. He studied her over the rim of his wine glass. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. On the surface, it's simple enough. A young woman attracted to power, perhaps looking for a mentor, perhaps looking for something more. But there's something else beneath that. He set down his glass. Something you're hiding. Emma's pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. You're giving me too much credit. I'm not that complicated. No? Nathan's gaze was penetrating. Then explain to me how a junior coordinator at a small foundation has such an intimate understanding of leveraged buyouts and corporate restructuring, topics that came up so naturally in our conversation last night. I read a lot, Emma replied smoothly. And your insight into the Taiwan semiconductor shortage affecting my telecommunications division? That was from reading too? Emma took another sip of wine, buying herself a moment. She had revealed too much, gotten too comfortable in their conversation. A rookie. Mistake she couldn't afford. I majored in international business before deciding the corporate world wasn't for me. Some knowledge sticks. Nathan leaned forward slightly. See, that's what intrigues me about you, Emma. You're like a puzzle, with pieces that don't quite fit together. His tone softened. It's refreshing. Most people I meet are depressingly easy to categorize. The conversation shifted as the main course arrived. A perfectly prepared filet mignon that melted in Emma's mouth. Nathan spoke about his childhood in Boston, his early struggles before success, carefully edited stories that revealed little of substance while creating the illusion of openness. Emma matched him, sharing details of her fabricated background that she had rehearsed so often they felt almost real. The strict grandmother in Vermont, the academic achievements, the disillusionment with corporate greed that led her to non-profit work. Tell me about your brother, she said as dessert was served, a delicate chocolate creation that looked too artistic to eat. The shift in atmosphere was immediate. Nathan's expression hardened, the warmth in his eyes replaced by something guarded and cold. Joshua isn't a topic for dinner conversation. I'm sorry, Emma said, genuine regret in her voice. She had pushed too hard, too soon. That was insensitive of me. Nathan was silent for a long moment, swirling the remaining wine in his glass. When he spoke again, his voice was distant. He was the golden boy, brilliant, charismatic, principled, to a fault. Everyone loved Joshua, our parents, our teachers, investors, women. A hint of bitterness colored his words. He had this moral compass that never wavered, black and white, right and wrong. And you? Emma asked softly. I live in the gray areas, Nathan replied, meeting her eyes again. I always have. It made me the disappointment until it made me successful. He drained his glass. Joshua's principles didn't save him in the end. Emma felt a pang of genuine sympathy despite herself. What happened to him? For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then with clinical detachment he said, an accident at one of our early development sites, a structural failure. He was inspecting the foundation when it happened. The official story, the one Emma knew, was a carefully constructed lie, but she nodded sympathetically as if hearing it for the first time. I'm so sorry. It was 12 years ago. Nathan stood abruptly. Let's move inside, the night air is getting chilly. In the living room, Nathan poured them each a glass of aged bourbon. Emma accepted hers, noting how the amber liquid caught the light. The conversation had entered dangerous territory. She needed to redirect, to regain the intimate connection without triggering his defenses. This place reflects you, she observed, gesturing around the immaculate space. Controlled, precise, impressive. But I wonder if there's anywhere here that's just for you, not for showing to others or maintaining an image. Nathan studied her with renewed interest. You think I maintain an image? Everyone does, Emma replied. The question is whether there's space where you allow yourself to exist without it. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor he wore so effortlessly. Come with me. He led her up a floating staircase to the second level of the penthouse. Unlike the public spaces below, this area felt more personal, less curated for outside eyes. He opened a door at the end of the hallway, revealing a room that stood in stark contrast to the rest of the home. It was a study, but unlike any Emma had imagined for someone like Nathan. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled not with leather-bound classics or business tomes for show, but with well-worn paperbacks and hardcovers that showed signs of frequent reading. A vintage record player sat in one corner beside a collection of vinyl. The furniture was comfortable rather than stylish, and photographs, actual printed photographs, not digital frames, were scattered on available surfaces. "No one sees this. Tarum except me," Nathan said quietly. "Not my staff, not my business associates, not the women I bring home." He gave her a pointed look. "Until now." Emma moved to one of the bookshelves, running her fingers along the spines. Science fiction, philosophy, history, poetry, an eclectic collection that revealed a mind far more curious and complex than Nathan's public persona suggested. "Why show me?" she asked, turning to face him. Nathan's expression was unguarded for the first time since they'd met. "Because you asked the right question. Because you seem to see past the surface." He stepped closer. "Because something about you makes me want to be seen." The air between them charged with electricity. Emma knew she should maintain control, keep her emotional distance while fostering his attachment. It was the plan. Get close enough to learn his secrets, to find the evidence she needed. But when Nathan brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch sent a current through her that had nothing to do with calculation. "You're dangerous," he murmured, his face inches from hers. "Why?" Emma whispered, her heart racing. "Because I can't figure out if you're exactly what you seem or nothing like it." His hand cupped her cheek, "And I'm not sure which I want to be true." When his lips met hers, Emma told herself it was part of the plan, that she was still in control, still the one setting the pace of this dance. But the heat that flared between them threatened to consume her carefully constructed walls. His kiss was confident but restrained, testing her response. Emma allowed herself to respond with equal measure, neither yielding completely nor taking control. When they separated, Nathan's eyes were dark with desire. But there was wariness there too, a recognition that they were both engaged in a game whose rules remained unclear. "Stay tonight," he said, his voice rough. It wasn't part of Emma's plan, not this soon. She needed to maintain the chase, to keep him pursuing her. But something deeper than strategy made her nod. "Yes," she said simply. The night unfolded in a haze of passion that took Emma by surprise. She had expected Nathan to be dominant, perhaps even impersonal, a man accustomed to taking what he wanted. Instead, he was attentive, responsive, matching her rhythm and reading her body with an intuition that left her breathless. In the darkness of his bedroom, with the city lights creating patterns across their skin, Emma found herself responding to him with an authenticity that frightened her. Each touch, each whispered word, each moment of connection pulled her further from her mission and closer to something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Afterward, lying in his arms, Emma stared at the ceiling, conflict raging within her. She was here for a reason, a purpose that had nothing to do with the warmth spreading through her chest or the contentment settling in her bones. "What are you thinking?" Nathan asked, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her bare shoulder. "That this wasn't what I expected," she answered truthfully. Nathan propped himself up on one elbow, studying her face in the dim light. "What did you expect?" Emma chose her words carefully. "I thought you'd be more guarded." "I am guarded," he replied. "But there's something about you, Emma Bennett." He brushed his lips against her forehead. "Something that makes me want to let you in." The guilt that twisted in Emma's stomach was unexpected and unwelcome. This man, this powerful, controlled, complex man, was beginning to trust her, and her entire presence in his life was built on deception. "Remember why you're here," she told herself fiercely. "Remember what he did." But as sleep finally claimed her, Emma found herself wondering if the story she had believed for so long was as black and white as she had always thought. Nathan Blackwood was revealing himself to be far more than the cold, calculating villain she had constructed in her mind, and that realization was far more dangerous than any physical intimacy they had shared. In the morning, Emma woke to find Nathan already dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, checking messages on his phone. "Good morning," he said, noticing her stirring. I have an early meeting I can't reschedule. Stay as long as you like. Maria will bring you. Breakfast. He hesitated, then added, I'd like to see you again tonight if you're free. Emma sat up, holding the sheet to her chest, aware of her vulnerability in more ways than one. Tonight, she agreed, her voice husky with sleep. Nathan crossed to the bed and kissed her with surprising tenderness. You've gotten under my skin, Emma Bennett, he murmured against her lips. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. After Ray. He left. Emma allowed herself 5 minutes to simply breathe, to process the unexpected intensity of the night they had shared. Then she slipped from the bed and began to move through the penthouse with purpose. She had limited time before the housekeeper would arrive with breakfast. Nathan's study would hold the most valuable information, but she suspected it would also be the most secured. Instead, she focused on his home office on the main floor, searching for any clues about Joshua Blackwood and the accident that had claimed his life. The office was immaculate, with little personal material visible. Emma checked the most obvious places first: desk drawers, filing cabinets, bookshelves, finding nothing of interest. Just as she was about to give up, she noticed a small safe behind a modernist painting. Her heart raced. She couldn't crack a safe in the time she had, but its existence confirmed her suspicion that Nathan kept sensitive information in his home, not just at his office. The sound of the elevator arriving sent her hurrying back to the bedroom. She had just slipped into the adjoining bathroom when she heard Maria enter the penthouse. As Emma showered, her mind worked furiously. She was making progress, faster than she had anticipated. Nathan was opening up to her, showing her parts of himself he kept hidden from others. But the intensity of their connection was a double-edged sword. The more he revealed himself, the harder it became to see him as simply a target, a means to an end. And that was a complication Emma couldn't afford. Not when she was so close to uncovering the truth about what really happened to Joshua Blackwood, and the role his brother had played in the tragedy that had altered the course of so many lives, including her own. 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of intimacy and careful maneuvering. Emma divided her time between her modest apartment, where she maintained her cover as a dedicated non-profit worker, and Nathan's penthouse, where their relationship deepened with each encounter. By day, she attended meetings at the Fairchild Foundation, building her alibi and keeping up appearances. By night, she was increasingly becoming a fixture in Nathan's carefully controlled world. For Nathan, the relationship was unprecedented. He had never allowed a woman to stay multiple nights, to leave personal items in his home, to know his private number and schedule. His closest associates noticed the change in him, a softening around the edges, moments of distraction in meetings, the occasional genuine smile that transformed his usually stern features. "You're different," Marcus Webb, his longtime CFO and oldest friend, remarked after a board meeting. "This Bennett woman must be special." Nathan's response was non-committal, but his eyes betrayed him. Emma Bennett had become more than a diversion. She was becoming essential. For Emma, the situation was growing increasingly complicated. Each genuine moment of connection with Nathan made her mission more difficult. She had come to know him not just as the calculating businessman whose decisions had far-reaching consequences, but as a man with vulnerabilities, regrets, and desires that went beyond power and control. On a rainy Tuesday evening, Emma sat cross-legged on Nathan's sofa, reviewing foundation proposals while he worked nearby on his laptop. The domesticity of the scene struck her with unexpected force, this easy companionship, the comfortable silence broken only by the gentle tapping of keys and the rain against the windows. "You're staring," Nathan said without looking up. Emma smiled. "Just thinking." Dangerous pastime. He closed his laptop and moved to join her on the sofa. "Share your thoughts." She hesitated, then decided to take a calculated risk. "I was wondering about Blackwood Enterprises before it became the empire it is today. About the early days, when you and Joshua were just starting out." Nathan's expression darkened slightly at the mention of his brother's name, but he didn't shut down completely as he had during their first dinner. "Progress," Emma noted. "It was different then," he said after a moment. Simpler in some ways, harder in others. We were running on ambition, caffeine, and the absolute conviction that we were going to change the world. A hint of nostalgia softened his features. Joshua was the visionary. I was the pragmatist. He'd come up with these grand ideas, and I'd figure out how to make them profitable. You balanced each other, Emma suggested. Nathan nodded slowly. Until we didn't. He reached for his bourbon, taking a thoughtful sip. The Riverside development was where it started to unravel. Emma's heart rate accelerated. Riverside, the project where Joshua had lost his life, the key to everything. What happened? She asked, keeping her voice casual while her mind raced. Nathan's eyes grew distant. We had different ideas about the direction of the company. Joshua wanted to focus on sustainable development, affordable housing, projects with social impact but limited profit margins. I saw opportunities for luxury developments, commercial properties, higher returns. He set down his glass. We fought about it. Badly. Brothers fight, Emma said softly. It's normal. Not like this, Nathan's voice hardened. Joshua threatened to take half the company in a different direction. He had enough voting shares to cause problems. We said things. He trailed off, his expression haunted. The last conversation we had was an argument about Riverside. He wanted to shut it down because of environmental concerns, structural issues. I wanted to push forward. Emma's throat tightened. This was it, the truth beginning to emerge. And then the accident happened, she prompted gently. Nathan stood abruptly, moving to the window to stare out at the rain-slicked city. He went to the site to gather evidence of the problems. There was a collapse. His voice was flat, emotionless. The official investigation ruled it a tragic accident. Poor timing, unforeseen structural weakness. Emma watched him carefully, noting the tension in his shoulders, the rigidity of his spine. And you? What did you think happened? For a long moment, Nathan didn't respond. When he finally turned to face her, his expression was guarded. Why are you so interested in Joshua's passing, Emma? A warning bell sounded in her mind. She had pushed too hard, been too obvious in her questioning. I'm interested in you, she said, rising to join him by the window. Your past shaped who you are now. I want to understand all of you, even the painful parts. Nathan studied her face, searching for something, sincerity perhaps, or deception. Whatever he saw seemed to satisfy him, because he pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. After it happened, he said, his voice muffled against her, I wondered if I could have prevented it. If I'd listened to his concerns instead of fighting him on every point. If I'd gone with him to the site, instead of staying behind to meet with investors. His arms tightened around her. The guilt nearly destroyed me. The raw pain in his voice caught Emma off guard. This wasn't the calculated remorse of a man with something to hide. It was the genuine anguish of someone who had lost a loved one and blamed himself for it. It wasn't your fault, she heard herself saying, the words automatic but sincere. Nathan pulled back slightly, looking into her eyes. You can't know that. No, but I intend to find out, Emma thought. Aloud, she said, I know you, Nathan. Whatever your differences with Joshua, you wouldn't have wanted him harmed. He kissed her then, a desperate, seeking kiss that spoke of his need for absolution. Emma responded with equal fervor, pushing aside the growing conflict within her. Later, in the darkness of his bedroom, their lovemaking had an edge of desperation, as if Nathan was trying to lose himself in the physical connection to escape the memories she had stirred up. Afterward, as he slept beside her, Emma lay awake, her mind churning. Nathan's version of events didn't align with the information she had gathered over the years. The structural failure that killed Joshua hadn't been an accident. It had been the result of deliberate corners cut, safety regulations ignored, inspections falsified. Someone had wanted that development to proceed regardless of the risks, regardless of the costs. She had always believed that someone was Nathan, but his grief tonight had seemed genuine. Was it possible she had been wrong? Or was he simply an accomplished liar, manipulating her emotions as skillfully as he manipulated the business world. Emma slipped from the bed carefully, not wanting to wake him. She needed to find concrete evidence, documents, emails, anything that would reveal the truth about Riverside and Joshua's passing. With Nathan's defenses lowered, this might be her best opportunity. She made her way to his study, the one private space he had shared with her. The room was dark, illuminated only by the city lights filtering through the windows. Emma moved to his desk, opening drawers as silently as possible. Nothing of significance in the first drawer, or the second. The third contained business documents, contracts, proposals. Nothing related to Riverside or to Joshua. Emma's frustration mounted as she continued her search. There had to be something here, some evidence of Nathan's involvement or his innocence. She couldn't leave empty-handed, not when she was finally getting close to the truth. A floorboard creaked behind her. Looking for something specific? Nathan's voice, cold and controlled, sent ice through her veins. Emma straightened slowly, turning to face him. He stood in the doorway, wearing only pajama bottoms, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "I couldn't sleep," she said, her mind racing, for a plausible explanation. "I thought I might borrow a book." "From my desk drawers?" Nathan's tone was deadly quiet. "Try again, Emma, and this time, be honest." The moment stretched between them, taut with tension and unspoken accusations. Emma realized with sudden clarity that her cover was blown. Whatever happened next would depend on how she handled this confrontation. "I want to know what really happened to Joshua," she said finally, deciding that a partial truth was her best option. "The official story never made sense to me." Nathan's laugh was bitter. "And you thought you'd find answers by searching my private study in the middle of the night." He took a step toward her. "Who are you really, Emma Bennett? Because I'm starting to think that everything about you is a lie." Emma lifted her chin defiantly. "Not everything." "No?" He moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then, explain to me why a junior coordinator at a non-profit foundation is so interested in a 12-year-old construction accident. Explain why you've been asking specific questions about Riverside since the day we met. Explain why, when you think, 'I'm not looking, you study me like you're trying to find cracks in my armor.'" Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She had underestimated him, his awareness, his suspicion, his ability to see through her carefully constructed persona. "I have my reasons," she said quietly. "I'm sure you do." Nathan's voice was eerily calm now. "The question is whether those reasons have anything to do with the feelings you've pretended to have for me." The accusation stung more than Emma expected, because despite everything, despite her mission, and her determination to uncover the truth, her feelings for Nathan had become genuine. Complicated, conflicted, but real. "I haven't pretended anything," she said, her voice catching. "That's what makes this so difficult." Something flickered in Nathan's eyes, a momentary softening before the walls came back up. "Then tell me, the truth, all of it, now." Emma took a deep breath. This was the moment everything would change. "Joshua Blackwood's passing wasn't an accident," she said steadily. "The structural failure was the result of deliberate negligence, substandard materials, falsified safety reports, bribed inspectors." Nathan's expression hardened. "And you believe I was responsible?" It wasn't a question, but Emma answered it. "Anyway, I did. Now I'm not so sure." "Why?" The single word contained a wealth of emotion. Anger, hurt, confusion. Emma met his gaze unflinchingly. "Because Joshua Blackwood was my uncle." The shock that registered on Nathan's face was genuine. He took an involuntary step backward, as if physically struck by her words. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Joshua wasn't married. He didn't have children." "No," Emma agreed, "but he had a sister. My mother, Sarah Blackwood, before she married, and became Sarah Bennett." Nathan shook his head in disbelief. "Joshua didn't have a sister, I would have known." "Half-sister," Emma clarified. "Different mothers. Your father wasn't exactly faithful to your mother, Nathan. Sarah was born from one of his affairs, kept quiet with money and threats. Joshua found out about her when he was in college. They connected, became close. He was the one who encouraged her to pursue her dreams, to stop hiding in the shadows of the Blackwood family secrets. Nathan's face had gone pale. "You're lying." "Am I?" Emma challenged. "Ask yourself why you felt drawn to me from the beginning. Why something about me seemed familiar, yet you couldn't place it. Joshua and I shared the same eyes, the same dimple when we smile. You've been seeing ghosts every time you look at me." Nathan moved to his desk, sinking into the chair as if his legs could no longer support him. "If what you're saying is true, if you're really Joshua's niece, then why the deception? Why not come to me directly?" Emma's laugh was hollow. "Would you have believed me? Would you have given me access to information about Riverside, about what really happened to Joshua? Or would you have had your security team escort me out of the building?" "So instead, you created this elaborate charade," Nathan said, his voice hardening again. "Got close to me, slept with me, all to what? Gather evidence against me, expose me, get revenge?" "I wanted the truth," Emma said simply, "about how my uncle died, about who was responsible." Nathan's eyes flashed with anger. "And you decided I was guilty before you even met me?" "The evidence pointed to you," Emma replied. "You were the one pushing for the development to continue despite the safety concerns. You were the one who stood to gain the most from Joshua's removal from the company. You were the one who took control of Blackwood Enterprises after he was gone. So what changed?" Nathan demanded. "Why are you not so sure anymore?" Emma hesitated, vulnerability showing through her composure for the first time. "Because I've gotten to know you," she admitted quietly. "The man I've come to know these past weeks isn't someone who would sacrifice his brother for profit. He's complicated, driven, sometimes ruthless in business, but not a murderer." The silence that fell between them was heavy with unspoken emotions. Nathan stared at her, his expression unreadable, the muscles in his jaw working as he processed her revelations. "Get out," he said finally, his voice devoid of emotion. Emma felt as if she'd been slapped. "Nathan, get out." He enunciated each word precisely. "Take your things and leave my home. We'll discuss this further when I'm not tempted to have you arrested for corporate espionage." Emma knew better than to argue. She'd pushed him too. Far revealed too much too quickly. She'd lost the advantage of surprise, and now she needed to regroup. "This isn't over," she said quietly, heading for the door. "On that," Nathan replied, his voice ice-cold, "we are in complete agreement." Emma dressed quickly, gathering the few personal items she'd left in his penthouse. As she rode the elevator down to the lobby, her mind raced with possibilities and contingency plans. She had revealed her connection to Joshua, but not everything she knew. Nathan was in shock now, angry and hurt, but he would recover quickly. He would start investigating her claims, digging into her background, trying to verify or disprove her story. And when he did, he would discover that she had told him the truth, at least about her identity. Sarah Blackwood had indeed been Joshua's half-sister, a family secret buried by money and power. Emma's connection to the Blackwood family was real. What Nathan wouldn't find was evidence of his own guilt, because despite years of searching, Emma had never uncovered proof that Nathan had ordered or known about the sabotage at Riverside. The trail had always gone cold just before reaching him. As she stepped out into the night, rain soaking her, within seconds, Emma felt a pang of regret for the connection with Nathan that she had just severed. Against all odds, against all her plans and preparations, she had begun to care for him, to see him as a complex human being rather than a villain in her personal narrative. And now she had to wonder, if Nathan wasn't responsible for Joshua's death, then who was? Who had orchestrated the accident that had robbed her of her uncle and mentor? Who had stood to gain from silencing Joshua Blackwood permanently? The questions swirled in her mind as she hailed a taxi, giving the driver her apartment address. The game had changed completely now. The next move belonged to Nathan. Would he shut her out entirely, use his considerable resources to discredit her, perhaps even destroy her? Or would his feelings for her, if they had ever been genuine, lead him to seek a different resolution, As the taxi pulled away from the Obsidian, Emma caught a glimpse of a figure watching from a darkened car parked across the street. A chill ran down her spine that had nothing to do with her rain-soaked clothes. For the first time, she considered a possibility that had never occurred to her before. What if she wasn't the only one who had been searching for the truth about Joshua Blackwood's death? What if, by stirring up the past, she had attracted the attention of the very people who had orchestrated his demise in the first place? Emma sank back against the taxi seat, suddenly aware that she might have stepped into something far more dangerous than a confrontation with Nathan Blackwood. If there was a conspiracy powerful enough to eliminate Joshua and cover it up for 12 years, what would they do to his niece if they believed she was getting too close to the truth? The realization brought with it a new sense of urgency. She needed to talk to Nathan again, not as enemies or as lovers, but as allies. Because if she was right, they might both be in danger from an enemy that had remained hidden in the shadows for far too long. For 3 days, Emma heard nothing from Nathan. Her calls went straight to voicemail, her messages unanswered. She continued her work at the Fairchild Foundation, constantly looking over her shoulder, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched. On the 4th morning, as she left her apartment building, a sleek black car pulled alongside the curb. The rear door opened, revealing Marcus Webb, Nathan's CFO. "Ms. Bennett," he said with a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes, "Mr. Blackwood would like to speak with you." Emma hesitated, assessing the situation. Getting into a car with Nathan's right-hand man could be walking into a trap, but it could also be her only chance to resolve this situation. "Lead the way," she said, sliding into the back seat. The car didn't take her to Nathan's penthouse or to Blackwood Enterprises headquarters, as she'd expected. Instead, they drove out of the city, heading north along the Hudson River. After nearly an hour, they turned onto a private road that wound through dense forest before opening up to reveal a stunning modern house perched on a cliff overlooking the water. "Nathan's weekend retreat," Marcus explained as they parked. "Few people know about it." Emma nodded, understanding the message. Nathan was extending a measure of trust by bringing her to this private sanctuary, or ensuring their conversation would have no witnesses. Marcus led her through the house, all glass and natural wood, designed to blur the boundaries between indoor and outdoor spaces, to a large deck where Nathan stood with his back to them, looking out over the river. "Sir," Marcus announced, "Ms. Bennett is here." Nathan turned slowly. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes, and a weariness to his posture that Emma had never seen before. "Thank you, Marcus, that will be all." Marcus hesitated. "Are you sure you wouldn't like me to stay?" "Quite sure." Nathan's tone left no room for argument. After Marcus departed, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Emma remained where she was, unwilling to be the first to speak. Finally, Nathan gestured to a chair. "Please sit," Emma complied, maintaining her guard. "You've been investigating me." It wasn't a question, but Nathan nodded anyway. "Yes, and you were telling the truth, about being Joshua's niece, at least." He took the seat across from her. "Sarah Blackwood was indeed my father's illegitimate daughter. There are sealed court records of the settlement he paid to keep her existence quiet. Joshua discovered this when he was reviewing old family financial records during college. He paused. What I can't find is any evidence that you and Joshua ever met. We were careful," Emma replied. "Your father had made it clear that Sarah was never to contact the family, but Joshua reached out to her when he learned of her existence. They developed a relationship in secret. I was in high school when they first met." Nathan's expression remained guarded. "And your claim that Joshua's accident was deliberately engineered?" Emma met his gaze steadily. "I have evidence, Nathan. Not enough to take to the authorities yet, but enough to know it wasn't an accident. Enough to know someone wanted Joshua silenced." "Show me," he demanded. Emma hesitated. Sharing her evidence with Nathan meant giving up her only advantage, but if she wanted to find the truth, the whole truth, she needed his cooperation. "I need your laptop," she said. Nathan handed her his MacBook without comment. Emma inserted a small flash drive from her purse and pulled up a series of documents, emails, and photographs. These are internal memos from the construction site at Riverside, she explained, turning the screen so Nathan could see. They detail multiple structural issues that were reported and then buried, safety inspections that were falsified, materials that didn't meet code requirements but were used anyway. Nathan leaned forward, scanning the documents with growing intensity. "These are authentic," he murmured, more to himself than to her, "but I never saw any of these reports." Joshua mentioned concerns, but nothing this specific, nothing this damning. "Because someone made sure you didn't see them," Emma said quietly. "The same someone who likely orchestrated the structural failure that took Joshua's life when he went to inspect the site himself." Nathan's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. "You still think I was involved?" "If I thought that," Emma replied evenly, "I wouldn't be here showing you this evidence. I'd be taking it to the press or to law enforcement." He studied her face for a long moment. "Then who? Who would have had the authority to suppress these reports, to order shortcuts that compromised the entire structure?" Emma navigated to another file, an organizational chart of Blackwood Enterprises from 12 years ago. "Someone high enough in the company to make these decisions without your direct approval. Someone who stood to gain financially from cutting corners on Riverside. Someone who might have felt threatened by Joshua's stance on ethical development." Nathan's expression darkened as he examined the chart. There were only 3 people with that kind of authority, besides Joshua and myself. His finger traced the names at the top of the hierarchy. My father, who had stepped down but still had influence, Marcus Webb, who was already CFO, and Victor Harmon, our COO at the time. "Your father died 5 years ago," Emma pointed out. "Natural causes, by all accounts. Victor Harmon left the company shortly after Riverside and started his own development firm, which went bankrupt within 2 years. Nathan's eyes met hers, a terrible understanding dawning. "Leaving Marcus, who has been by my side for 15 years, my oldest friend, the person I trusted most after Joshua." Emma said nothing, letting him process the implications himself. Nathan stood abruptly, pacing the deck as his mind worked furiously. "Marcus was always jealous of Joshua," he said, thinking aloud. "Of our connection, of Joshua's influence over me. When Joshua and I argued about Riverside, Marcus encouraged it, stoked my anger, convinced me that Joshua was trying to undermine me." He stopped, turning to Emma with a haunted expression. "He was the one who scheduled the investors' meeting that kept me from accompanying Joshua to the site that day. And after Joshua was gone," Emma added quietly, "Marcus became your right hand. No one to challenge his position or his influence over you." Nathan's hands clenched into fists. "All these years," he whispered, "all these years, I've been working. Alongside the man who killed my brother. We need proof," Emma reminded him, "hard evidence that links Marcus directly to what happened at Riverside." Nathan's expression hardened with resolve. "I know where to look." He moved to take his laptop, back from her. "When Joshua raised concerns about Riverside, I asked Marcus to investigate personally. He reported back that the concerns were exaggerated, that Joshua was being overly cautious. He gave me a written assessment that contradicted everything Joshua was saying." "Let me guess," Emma said. "That assessment has disappeared from the company records." "Yes, but Marcus wouldn't have destroyed his only copy," Nathan replied, fingers flying over the keyboard. "He's too methodical, too careful. He would have kept it as insurance in case questions ever arose." "But where?" Emma frowned. "He'd keep something that sensitive close." Nathan's eyes lit with sudden understanding. "The lake house. Marcus has a property in the Adirondacks. He keeps a safe there with his most private documents. We went up there last year for a fishing weekend, and he was very protective of his office. Wouldn't let anyone enter, even me." "You think he'd keep evidence of his involvement in Joshua's death?" Emma asked skeptically. "Not evidence of his guilt," Nathan clarified, "but the original safety reports, the assessment he prepared for me, documents that would reveal the truth if the right connections were made." He closed the laptop decisively. "We need to go there. Now." Emma hesitated. Nathan, think about this. If Marcus is responsible for what happened to Joshua, he's dangerous. He's protected this secret for 12 years. He won't give it up easily. I'm not asking him to give it up, Nathan replied, his voice cold. I'm taking it. The determination in his eyes told Emma that nothing would dissuade him. Then I'm coming with you, she said firmly. Nathan's expression softened slightly. Why? After everything, why help me? Emma felt the weight of truth pressing on her chest. Because Joshua was family. Because I need to know what really happened as much as you do. She paused, meeting his gaze directly. And because, despite how we started, I care about you, Nathan. More than I should. Something shifted in Nathan's eyes, a vulnerability breaking through his carefully controlled exterior. I never thought I'd trust you again after learning who you really are, he admitted quietly. But right now you're the only person I do trust. The admission hung between them, fragile and significant. Emma nodded, acknowledging what remained unspoken, that whatever lay between them was complicated by deception and pain, but also by a connection neither had anticipated. Then let's go, she said simply. The drive to Marcus's lake house took nearly 3 hours, most of it in tense silence, as Nathan navigated mountain roads with grim concentration. Emma used the time to review everything she knew about Marcus Webb, searching for any additional connections to Joshua's passing that she might have missed. We're here, Nathan announced, as they turned onto a secluded driveway. Park down the road, he instructed the driver. Wait for my call. The lake house was an imposing structure of stone and timber, perfectly positioned to maximize views of the water. Nathan led Emma around to a side entrance, producing a key from his pocket. Marcus gave me this for emergencies years ago, he explained as he unlocked the door. Never thought I'd use it like this. The house was silent and still, confirming that Marcus wasn't there. Nathan moved with purpose through the great room toward a hallway that led to what was clearly a home office. The safe is behind that painting, he said, pointing to a landscape on the far wall. Emma carefully removed the painting, revealing a wall safe with an electronic keypad. Do you know the combination? Nathan's expression tightened. I have an idea. He input a 6-digit number, and the safe beeped in rejection. Damn. What was that? Emma asked. The date Blackwood Enterprises went public, Nathan replied, thinking. Marcus always said it was the most important day of his professional life. Emma's mind worked quickly. Try the date of Joshua's accident. Nathan looked at her sharply, then turned back to the safe. He entered the date, and after a tense moment, the safe clicked open. My God, he whispered, staring at the contents. Inside were several file folders, each neatly labeled and organized. Nathan pulled them out with trembling hands, spreading the documents across Marcus's desk. Emma moved beside him, helping to sort through the material. Here, she said, isolating one folder labeled Riverside Final Assessment. This must be the report he gave you. Nathan opened it, his face growing pale as he read. This contradicts everything in the safety reports. He assured me the structure was sound, that Joshua's concerns were unfounded. He flipped through more pages. And here, look at this. He pointed to a series of financial projections. Marcus stood to receive a substantial bonus if Riverside was completed, on schedule and under budget. But if we had followed Joshua's recommendations to address the structural issues, the bonus would have disappeared, Emma finished, but that's not enough reason to commit murder. No, Nathan agreed, continuing to search through the files. There has to be more. Emma turned her attention to another folder, this one unlabeled. Inside, she found correspondence between Marcus and several names she didn't recognize. As she read, her blood ran cold. Nathan, she said urgently, look at this. Marcus was in debt, serious debt, to some very dangerous people. He'd made bad investments, borrowed money he couldn't repay. He needed that Riverside bonus, but it was more than that. She handed him the documents. He'd promised his creditors a percentage of the Riverside profits if the project had been delayed or restructured as Joshua wanted. He would have been ruined, Nathan finished, the full picture finally becoming clear. And with Joshua gone, with me distracted by grief and guilt, he was able to push Riverside through without further scrutiny. The project made record profits, enough to clear his debts and establish him permanently as my second in command. Emma felt a chill run through her. He orchestrated all of it, the falsified safety reports, the substandard materials, and when Joshua went to the site to gather evidence, Marcus made sure the structure would fail, Nathan said, his voice hollow. He killed my brother to save himself from financial ruin. The weight of the truth settled around them like a shroud. For a moment, neither spoke, absorbing the magnitude of what they had uncovered. We need to get these documents to a secure location, Emma finally said. Then contact the authorities. With this evidence, sir. Mr. Blackwood. Marcus's voice from the doorway froze them both. I'm disappointed. Breaking into my home, going through my private files. That's not the behavior I'd expect from a man of your position. Nathan turned slowly, his expression a mask of contained fury. How long have you been here, Marcus? Long enough. Marcus stepped into the office, and Emma noticed with alarm that he held a gun casually at his side. I had my security system alert me when someone entered. Imagine my surprise when I saw it was you, and Miss Bennett of all people. You killed Joshua, Nathan said flatly. Marcus's expression didn't change. Joshua was going to destroy everything we had built. His idealism would have bankrupted the company. I did what was necessary to protect our interests. Our interests? Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. You murdered my brother to save yourself. I saved Blackwood Enterprises, Marcus countered. Look at what we've built since then. Nathan, the empire we've created. None of that would exist if I had let Joshua derail Riverside with his ethical concerns and environmental hand-wringing. And that justifies murder in your mind? Emma asked, unable to contain her disgust. Marcus's cold eyes shifted to her. Ah, Emma Bennett, or should I say Emma Blackwood, Joshua's secret niece coming to avenge her beloved uncle. His smile was chilling. I've been watching you since you first applied to the Fairchild Foundation. Did you think your little scheme to get close to Nathan went unnoticed? Emma felt her blood freeze. You knew who I was. I make it my business to identify threats before they become problematic, Marcus replied. Though I must admit, I didn't anticipate you and Nathan developing genuine feelings for each other. That was an unexpected complication. Nathan took a step forward. It's over, Marcus. We have the evidence. You'll pay for what you did to Joshua. I don't think so. Marcus raised the gun, pointing it directly at Nathan. I've protected this secret for 12 years. I'm not about to let you expose it now. Emma's mind raced, assessing options, looking for any way out of this deadly situation. She caught Nathan's eye briefly, seeing the same calculation happening behind his gaze. What's your plan, Marcus? Nathan asked, his voice steady despite the weapon aimed at him. Shoot us both? That's a bit messy even for you. A tragic accident, Marcus replied smoothly. You discovered that your new girlfriend was actually Joshua's niece, investigating his death. In your distress, you confronted her at my lake house while I was away. There was a struggle. The gun went off. He shrugged. 2 more victims of the Blackwood family tragedy. No one will believe that, Emma said, edging slightly to the side, trying to create distance between herself and Nathan, forcing Marcus to divide her attention. They'll believe what the evidence tells them, Marcus countered, and I'm very good at creating evidence. Nathan's eyes narrowed. You've thought of everything, haven't you, Marcus? Except one thing. And what's that? Marcus asked, his confidence unwavering. I activated the recording function on my phone when we entered the house, Nathan bluffed. Everything you've just confessed has been transmitted to my security team. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Marcus's face, but his aim didn't waver. You're lying. Am I? Nathan challenged. Why don't you check the camera feed from your security system? I made quite a show of using my phone when we first entered. Marcus hesitated, his gaze flicking briefly toward the computer on his desk, where he could access the security footage. In that moment of distraction, Emma lunged for a heavy crystal paperweight on the desk and hurled it directly at Marcus. The improvised projectile struck his arm, throwing off his aim as the gun discharged. The bullet shattered a window behind them as Nathan tackled Marcus to the ground. The gun skittered across the hardwood floor, and Emma dove for it, securing the weapon as Nathan subdued a struggling Marcus. "It's over," Nathan said, pinning Marcus down with a strength born of righteous fury. "You killed my brother. You've manipulated me for years. You tried to kill us. There's no coming back from this, Marcus." The fight seemed to drain out of Marcus suddenly, his body going limp beneath Nathan's grip. "You don't understand," he said, his voice suddenly tired. "I did it for us, for the company. Joshua would have destroyed everything with his idealism." "No," Nathan replied, his voice thick with emotion. "He would have made us better. He would have made me better." The local authorities arrived 30 minutes later, alerted by Nathan's driver who had heard the gunshot, and called 911. Marcus was taken into custody, the evidence of his crimes secured. As they stood outside watching the police car drive away, with Marcus in the back seat, Emma felt a strange mixture of vindication and emptiness. 12 years, she said quietly. 12 years of believing you were responsible, of planning how to expose you. She looked at Nathan, whose profile was stern in the fading afternoon light. "I was so wrong about you." Nathan turned to her, his expression softening. "You were right about one thing. I bear responsibility for what happened to Joshua, not because I orchestrated it, but because I allowed myself to be turned against him. I let Marcus's influence cloud my judgment, make me doubt my own brother's integrity." "That's not the same as being responsible for his death," Emma insisted. "No," Nathan agreed, "but it's a burden I'll carry nonetheless." He took her hand tentatively. "What happens now, Emma? Between us?" Emma felt the weight of possibilities in his question. Their relationship had begun with deception and hidden agendas. Could anything true grow from such tainted soil? "I don't know," she answered honestly. "Everything between us has been complicated by lies and half-truths, on both sides." Nathan nodded slowly. "Then perhaps we start over. No more secrets, no more hidden motives." He extended his hand formally. "Nathan Blackwood, I run a company that was built on my brother's vision, though I lost sight of that for too long. I'm working to make it the ethical force for good that he always wanted it to be." Despite everything, Emma found herself smiling. She took his offered hand. "Emma Bennett. My uncle was Joshua Blackwood, the finest man I've ever known. I'm trying to honor his memory by creating positive change in the world." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Emma Bennett," Nathan said, his eyes warming with the first genuine smile she had seen since their confrontation in his study days ago. "I think we might have some common interests. Would you consider having dinner with me sometime to discuss them?" The simplicity of the gesture, this clean slate offered despite the pain and betrayal between them, moved Emma deeply. "I'd like that," she replied softly. As they walked toward the waiting car, Emma glanced back at the lake house where Marcus's secrets had finally been exposed. Justice for Joshua had been her driving purpose for so long. Now that it was within reach, she found herself facing a future she hadn't planned for, one that might include Nathan Blackwood not as an enemy or a target, but as something far more complex and rewarding. "There's still much to do," Nathan said, following her gaze. "Legal proceedings, evidence to compile. Marcus won't go down without a fight." "We'll face it together," Emma replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "Joshua deserves nothing less." Nathan's hand found hers again, their fingers intertwining with a rightness that defied their complicated history. "Together," he agreed. As they drove away from the scene of Marcus's confession, the setting sun cast long shadows across the landscape. Emma looked out at the golden light illuminating the trees and felt, for the first time in 12 years, that she was moving, not just toward justice, but toward healing, for herself, for Nathan, and for the memory of the man they had both loved. The road ahead would not be easy. Trust, once broken, could not be instantly restored. But as Nathan's thumb traced gentle, Circles on the back of her hand, Emma allowed herself to believe in the possibility of redemption, not just for Nathan, who had lived too long with unwarranted guilt, but for herself as well, for the deception she had practiced in the name of truth, for the heart she had been willing to sacrifice in pursuit of justice. Some wounds might never fully heal, but in the shared understanding that now bound them together, Emma and Nathan had found something neither had expected when their paths first crossed: the chance to honor Joshua's memory, not through vengeance, but through forgiveness, and the courage to build something new from the ashes of the past. "Where to now?" the driver asked as they reached the main road. Nathan looked at Emma, the question in his eyes extending beyond their immediate destination. "Home," Emma answered, holding his gaze. "Let's go home." Dear listeners, we hope you've been captivated by Emma and Nathan's journey from deception to truth. Their story reminds us that sometimes the path to healing requires us to face painful truths and find forgiveness where we least expect it. If this tale of redemption touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on this video. Your support helps us continue bringing these emotional journeys to life. Have thoughts about how Emma and Nathan's story affected you? We'd love to hear from you in the comments below, and remember, we have a special playlist of similarly moving narratives waiting for you. Just click